This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the weekly Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. This show was recorded on July 9th, 2018, and I'm your host, Darren McKee. With me, as usual, are Adam Gardner.
Oh, hey, what's up, Cuboids?
Cristina Roach.
Hey, everyone.
And producer Pat.
Hey, checkers.
We have a great show for you today. Stuart is back with another 5 minutes with an astronomer to talk to us about Lagrangian points. And then Cristina explores whether ingesting collagen has any benefits for your skin. But first, I reviewed the book Stumbling on Happiness. I want to do this little review because I thought the book was great. And we're done. Do I get points for concision? Stumbling on Happiness is a book by Daniel Gilbert that came out way back in 2006. Years ago, I bought a physical copy of the book and I listened to the audio version. I think I listened first and then bought it to lend out to people because I liked it so much. I remembered liking it so much, I thought I'd re-listen to it recently. It was still good, and well, here we are. I'll provide some thoughts about the nature of the book itself, and then the core messages, and then some context to better understand these messages. Some basics. Gilbert is a Harvard social psychologist known for his work on affective forecasting. Affective with an A, meaning how you will feel in the future. As for effective forecasting with an E, see the work of Philip Tetlock and how most people aren't bad at it. The book is about 330 pages or 7.5 hours in audio. If you speed up the play rate a little bit, the book can be done in less than 5 hours. Whether something is worthwhile usually depends on the value it brings and the resources required to finish it. I can't help but think this is a huge factor for me. Not so much overall length, but something like amount of useful insights per page or per minute for you audiophiles.
Sure.
Length and cost can be factors in how someone evaluates a book, even though the person reading or listening to that evaluation or review might have different standards and thus would value the book more even if they saw the content was the same. Meaning, it might matter to me whether the book was $15 or $30, but the person listening to my review might not care.
I care more about the time of the book than the money of the book.
So I just think it's an interesting thing, as always, to keep in mind when someone's like, this book wasn't good or bad. You're like, well, based on what factors and what criteria?
Yeah.
Anyway, enough meandering. This isn't the American Gods review. The book is wisely titled because it is A, attention-grabbing, while B, being mostly accurate. It is not a book about happiness, but a book about how our brains work and how we have trouble understanding and predicting what will make us happy.
Oh.
It is also a very witty book. So along with interesting psychological facts, studies, and ideas, humor and light asides happily appear. I thought about summarizing Gilbert's position on imagination, prediction, and happiness by listening to the audiobook and then typing out the little summary in the book that he provides in one of the chapters, but then I decided I'd be much happier just quoting Wikipedia's summary as someone else did all that work. So, on Wikipedia it said, Gilbert's central thesis is that, through perception and cognitive biases, people imagine the future poorly, in particular, what will make them happy. He argues that imagination fails in 3 ways. Numero uno. Imagination tends to add and remove details, but people do not realize that key details may be fabricated or missing from the imagined scenario. Number 2, imagined futures and pasts are more like the present than they actually will be, or were. Number 3, imagination fails to realize that things will feel different once they actually happen. Most notably, the psychological immune system we have will make bad things feel not so bad as they are imagined to feel. So unpacking that a bit, when you try to imagine what's going to happen in the future, say you get that job or you lose that job opportunity, you usually focus on the one event, not all the other things. So if you get the job, you still have to go to work. You still actually have to do the work. If you lose the job, you still have other things in your life. You'll have to go get groceries. You'll see your friends and your family. And so there's all these other factors that are almost always present in life, which no matter what have some sort of bearing on the overall happiness of your day. They looked at students who were writing an exam, whether they were going to do good or bad in the exam, or there was a good sporting match where they cared about the outcome of the match. Like, well, you still had to go home and study for the exam, even if your team won or lost. So there's these other variables, that the other aspects of your life that come into play that mitigate how happy or sad you might be. And then people think the future or the past will be very different compared to the present, but they're actually really similar often because we're, for the most part, the same people. So we have similar interests, similar dispositions, and he doesn't quite mention that you have a happiness set point, but I think that's part of it, that you tend to come back to that. Yeah. And no matter what, you probably still have to eat and sleep, and that comes with a certain monotony, drudgery, or forced schedule.
And that's not including, that's just in general, right? Not anyone who has a mental health issue or suffers from depression.
Correct. And then for the third one, fails to realize things that will actually feel different once they actually happen. This is where if someone is imagining something very bad happening, they just think it's going to be horrific and terrible forever. When if you talk to people who have actually experienced something bad, it is terrible and it's bad, and then a few years go by and they do feel a bit better. Maybe there's a part of them which feels some sense of loss that's always with them, but it's not always in the sense always present in their mind that's with them. Their life is just a little bit worse sometimes, but it's hard to see beyond that. So the advice Gilbert offers is to use other people's experiences to predict the future instead of imagining it.
Yeah, that's good.
It is surprising how similar people are in much of their experiences, he says. He does not expect too many people to heed this advice, as our culture, accompanied by various thinking tendencies, is against this method of decision-making. So in this sense, how do you know how you're going to feel with an experience? Just actually ask someone who's been through the experience.
Yeah.
That is a more reliable guide. Apparently, they've done different studies on this in different ways to really tease this out. And people are like, no, I'm special. I'm unique. That other person isn't like me. But the best predictor is a random person who's gone through the experience, because humans are relatively similar in terms of what we like and value. So it's very, I guess, humbling. And we do try to practice cognitive humility. They're like, I know myself. I can predict my happiness. Yeah. This thing is going to matter more to me than the average person. This thing is going to make me more sad than the average person. And for the most part, that is not true.
Yeah.
There were one or two points that I did want to correct, where he tends to say money doesn't really make people happy, because he used the example of lottery winners not being that happy after. And I do think some recent evidence indicates they actually are at least a little bit happier. Mm-hmm. Now, was any of this new? Well, of course not. I'd already finished the book before. Don't you listen? Jokes aside, the book did come out in 2006, so does it still have value? Very much so. Many books describe the ways in which our brains work and don't work, and because these biases are systemic, they are very hard to remove, if not impossible.
I was going to say, I hope so, Darren, or you just wasted a few minutes of our time.
I think more and different passes over the same ideas can help really encode the material. Yeah. Gilbert doesn't name the biases like Daniel Kahneman does, say in Thinking Fast and Slow, availability bias, confirmation bias, and so on that you hear about on this show. But the biases are all there. And as I said, his writing is so good that I think it's a great book for pretty much everyone. I highly recommend it. Heck, I could see listening to it a third time in the near future. Seriously, just go read the book. Finally, for those curious, I linked to a post by Andrew Gilman about the reproducibility crisis in psychology and how he thinks Gilbert is being too agnostic and underappreciating how thorough the attempted replication process was. That's for the nerds. You can find those links, as usual, at trcpodcast.com.
As we did last week, and as we'll do occasionally in the future, today we're running an episode of 5 Minutes with an Astronomer, which is a crossover show between us and Dr. Stuart Robbins' Exposing Pseudo-Astronomy podcast. If you enjoy it, you can find all 28 episodes of Season 1 wherever you get your podcast. This week we're running an episode on Lagrange points. Welcome to 5 Minutes with an Astronomer, the show where we ask Dr. Stuart Robbins, a professional astronomer, about our universe. Each episode we tackle one question and give Stuart the challenging task of helping us understand the topic in under 5 minutes without a script. I'm Pat Roach, and with me is Cristina Fernandez.
Hey, everyone.
And of course, Stuart Robbins.
Ahoy, hoy.
Stuart, are you ready for today's question?
Indeed.
Excellent. I'll set the timer. Cristina, please ask the question.
Stuart, when you arrived in Toronto, Canada, as you like to call it, you and Pat had a pretty extensive conversation about Lagrangian points. I have to admit, I don't really know what a Lagrangian point is. Can you enlighten me?
I can, although this might take more than 5 minutes, so I might talk a little fast. So, Lagrange points were named for Joseph Louis Lagrange, or Lagrange, perhaps, depending on where you're from. He formalized the concept in 1772, although it was Euler who actually figured out a little bit about this a few years before that. The basic idea is that if you have two massive objects where one is less massive than the other, so picture the Earth and the Sun, there will exist certain points between or around them where an object will be stable, held there by the gravity of those two objects. And by stable, this means that the orbit of this tiny extra object is going to be the same as the less massive object. So this would mean, for example, there would be a point somewhere close to Earth where an object placed at that point would have the same orbital period as Earth. So it would go around the Sun with Earth and therefore be stable. Now, if you've listened to the Kepler's Laws episode, you might notice a problem here. That's where an object that's not placed at the same orbital distance as Earth around the Sun can somehow have the same period as Earth going around the sun, whereas Kepler's third law says that shouldn't be possible. So here's a critical thinking question. What was an assumption in Kepler's laws that makes everything simpler there, but that's not an assumption here, that assumption is broken in this case?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to guess that it's because it is based only on the gravity of the objects in the equation as opposed to perhaps the gravity of other objects?
I'm not sure either, but does it have anything to do with how big those objects are?
Sort of yes to both of you.
Okay.
So it's 1 versus 2 massive bodies, and considering that the object is going to be placed between them, and so you have the gravity from these bodies interacting to alter some of those basic fundamental assumptions and simplicities of Kepler's third law. Whereas with Kepler's third law, we're just considering one object going around another massive object. Here, it's more complicated. You're talking about 3 objects or more if you really want to get complicated. So there are 5 Lagrange points for any 2 massive objects. And I'm just going to use the letter L, and then this is commonly written 1 through 5 with subscripts. So L1 is between Earth and the Sun, and Earth's gravitational tug makes its orbital period exactly Earth's period instead of shorter, as it would normally be under Kepler's third law. L2 is on the opposite side of Earth, so the order out from the Sun would be Sun, Earth, L2. This is where Earth's gravity makes the orbital period exactly Earth's period instead of a little bit longer. L3 is basically the anti-Earth. So this was common in a lot of sci-fi in the 1950s. It's still a conspiracy theory a bit today that there is some object, some anti-Earth on the opposite side of the sun to Earth, and it has the exact same period, etc., etc. Now, actually, for those who are pedantic, L3 is not exactly Earth's orbit. It is slightly outside of Earth's orbit, slightly farther, but it is actually closer to the sun than Earth. That might seem completely counterintuitive. I mean, how can you have both of those? The reason is that the sun is pulled a little bit towards Earth, and so the sun orbits around the barycenter, and so this actually does work out if you draw a picture and imagine it in your head, if you have a really good imagination for these kinds of things. L4 is 60 degrees ahead of the smaller body, slightly outside of the orbit, so that an equilateral triangle exists between the barycenter of the 2 massive objects, the smaller massive object, and the point object. This is where if you were to place an object roughly 60 days ahead of Earth in its orbit around the sun, that object would be stable because it would be at the L4 Lagrange point. It's the exact same case with L5, except we are 60 degrees behind the object. Now, there's a little bit of another twist in Lagrange points. L1, 2, and 3 are actually unstable. That means that objects that are placed there either have to be placed exactly there and never move, or they're going to fall off, effectively. Lagrange points are interactions between gravity, and this is a gravitational hill. So if you place a pebble on top of a hill, you can get it to stay there, but it's really hard, and it's going to want to fall off.
Right.
L4 and L5 are stable. So we tend to like stuff there, and this is actually why we get a lot of natural objects like asteroids in the L4 and L5 Lagrange points, but not at L1, 2, or 3, which is actually why L1, 2, and 3 are good for spacecraft. Even though they're unstable points, if we stick a little thruster on there, we can keep it close by, and we can actually orbit those points, and it's a very gravitationally relatively stable orbit with minimal fuel required, and keeps the spacecraft in constant communication with Earth, which is kind of important.
Right.
So that's the basics of Lagrange points. Did that sort of help you figure it out?
It did, but I have one question.
Okay.
Could you define barycenter?
Yes. So a barycenter is the gravitational center between 2 massive objects. It's a teeter-totter. So if you and a friend weigh exactly the same, the barycenter, or that fulcrum point, is going to be in the exact middle, and you'll balance each other out. If you and a toddler were on a teeter-totter, you'd have to stick that center point really close to you to balance out.
Got it.
And that center point is the barycenter. Only this case, it's with gravity, with the sun and Earth, or the sun and Jupiter, and other kinds of things.
So to summarize, Lagrange points are these points between objects where their gravity balances out.
Sounds about right, and much simpler than my explanation.
5 Minutes with an Astronomer is an educational resource provided as a crossover of Stuart Robbins' Exposing Pseudo-Astronomy podcast and members of the award-winning The Reality Check podcast. You can find out more about Stuart at podcast.sjrdesign.net. You can find The Reality Check at trcpodcast.com. And you can find our website at astronomyin5.com. Send any topic suggestions, questions, or feedback to info@astronomyin5.com.
Thanks, Pat and Stu. Now, Cristina, what's the deal with collagen supplements?
I recently asked myself that same question, Darren, and heard you do Seinfeld in my head, so thank you for that. A plethora of collagen supplements have been popping up lately. The topic is making the rounds in beauty mag articles and with hashtag influencers right now who are using collagen powder in smoothies or coffee and taking collagen shots, which you may guess comes with a price tag. Now first, what is collagen? The name collagen comes from Greek word kala, meaning glue, and suffix gen, denoting producing. It's a structural protein that binds cells and tissues together while helping them maintain shape and integrity. Collagen consists of amino acids, and it's mostly found in fibrous tissues like your tendons, ligaments, and your skin. It's the most abundant protein in mammals, making up 25 to 35% of our whole body protein content. And it's the main building block for skin, so pretty important. An NYC dermatologist, Dr. Ann Chappis, told Women's Health last month, collagen gives her skin that youthful suppleness and is a key component of repairing wounded skin. The authors of that article, Grace Gold and Jessica McGullough, put it simply, it gives good face. Now, as we age, our bodies produce less collagen. So I quickly realized this is going to be one of those health beauty topics where people who are chasing that holy grail of youth get a little bit of information, i.e. collagen equals youthful skin, and extrapolate that they should probably boost their collagen intake without really understanding or questioning how collagen works in our bodies.
Just so I understand, what are people doing? They're putting it as a powder in like a smoothie or something?
Yeah,
okay.
It's a powder, it's a supplement, like a vitamin, like a vitamin. Okay, so sure, it may sound plausible that consuming extra animal source collagen could help our bodies replenish our collagen stores, but does it? If only these people had access to a computer or handheld device with an internet search engine, they would quickly determine that legit skin specialists, i.e. dermatologists, agree there is little convincing research to back collagen supplement-related claims. Now, researchers in the field of nutrition have demonstrated many times that just because a food contains something, when you're talking about dietary fat, it doesn't mean that our bodies will absorb it or make more of it. Yeah. I'm no biochemist, but I'm pretty sure that's not how digestion works. By the way, if any listeners are biochemists, that would be handy to know for future.
And if you have a good radio voice, let us know.
Yes. So let's start with collagen powders and drinks. Is there any credible research to substantiate the claim that throwing a scoop of collagen powder in a smoothie or chugging back a collagen drink will give me good face? Unfortunately, not. Or I'd probably be doing collagen shots right now, quite frankly. According to dermatologist Dr. Rachel Nazarian, quote, it's thought that the collagen, when taken orally, is broken down into what is essentially protein and then absorbed by the body. So basically your body digests it, but it doesn't reach your skin as actual collagen.
But maybe a good protein supplement.
Even
maybe
at that, it's not. I didn't get into the details, Adam, but I read that people who were thinking they could use it as a protein supplement, it wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the greatest idea.
Do you even collagen, bro?
Dr. Adam Friedman, an associate professor of dermatology at George Washington University, says the collagen is going to be digested by your GI tract because it isn't built to survive the massive pH changes in the gut. And as Dr. Chappis says, quote, most studies of oral collagen are not rigorous enough to draw conclusions about their effort on skin health, appearance, or aging. Now, as a side note, there is one study from 2015 that suggests if you have dry skin, ingestible collagen could benefit skin hydration in people over the age of 30 and slow the formation of deep wrinkles. But dermatologist Dr. Sumayya Jamal cautions us to take that with a grain of salt. Since the study is small, you'd need more controls, larger groups, for it to be academically convincing. So speaking of collagen shots, they promise to improve your skin tone and firmness, do they? Negative. Collagen shots are digested in the stomach just like the powder, so it's very unlikely it will ever reach your skin. The same goes with oral collagen supplement pills, which can be an expensive habit, especially when you factor in that there's no peer-reviewed data to show they result in any improvement in your skin. Another important thing to keep in mind is although the FDA has approved dermal fillers, including collagen fillers that are injected directly into facial tissue, collagen supplements are not regulated by the FDA, and products have been recalled because of false claims. Now, collagen peptide powder, for instance, contains hydrolyzed, which simply means it's gone through a process to help it dissolve in hot or cool liquids, hydrolyzed type 1 collagen that's been extracted from cow hides, animal bones, and fish scales. So do you really want to take a chance on ingesting pills that are not proven to be effective, much less safe?
Mm-hmm.
Will it make me pretty? Yes.
Right. You hit the nail on the head, Darren. Okay, so it's clear we don't have enough evidence to support the claim that ingesting collagen has any direct benefit to our skin. But what if I slather collagen cream directly on my face? Does it help fill in wrinkles and make my skin look smoother, plumper, and more youthful looking like collagen creams claim? Strike 3, unfortunately. According to dermatologists, the collagen molecule, it's just too large to be absorbed by the skin or through the skin. Now, all hope is not lost for those of us looking to boost our skin's collagen production. Dr. Nazarian, amongst other dermatologists, say the use of retinoids, which are derivatives of vitamin A, have demonstrated to boost collagen production in our skin, as does vitamin C. Your diet and lifestyle, not surprisingly, comes into play too. Smoking, not wearing sunscreen, lack of exercise, and not eating a balanced diet with lots of protein, all of these lifestyle choices damage your collagen as you age. NYC dermatologist Craig Austin says, quote, your body converts those nutrients into essential amino acids that are needed to keep your skin and bones healthy. These nutrients are then sent to the bloodstream and will supply the dermis, the deepest part of your skin, with naturally produced collagen. Okay, before I sign off, I do want to mention that the most complete research in terms of collagen ingestion is around joint health. And there actually seems to be some promising research in terms of collagen's effectiveness with joint pain and rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. So no time to get into that, but I'll throw a couple of links in the show notes. And just for fun, you guys know I had to check Goop's website for collagen-related supplements or powders. And sure enough, for $40 US, you can order Collagen Love supplements, which the site claims is a restorative blend that supports elasticity and firmness in all the right places.
That's a lot of buck dollars.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cristina, for another wonderful takedown. And thanks for joining us once again. I reviewed the book Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert, and you should just go read it or listen to it.
Right.
We had another great 5 minutes with Dr. Stu, and he told us that two bodies coming together balances just nicely. And finally, Cristina showed us that ingesting collagen or rubbing it all over yourself doesn't seem to have any benefits for your skin. Just try to use sunscreen more. Until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, Q points.
Stay classy, not smart-assy.
We'll talk to you next week, everyone.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @TRC_podcast.